I'm Miriam Blackman, and my topic is white privilege in sports. This leads to my question: to what extent has white privilege affected the sports world and the people in it in the past decade? Racism and white privilege have been ingrained in the sports world since day one, and we can still see it in places like crowds of stadiums or even your everyday coach. Oh, shoot. White privilege is extremely prevalent in football, and here in these pictures you can see the Confederate flag waving proudly with at a professional match. David Leonardo says in Playing While White, white privilege is NASCAR CEO endorsing Donald Trump while its fans hysterically wave the Confederate flag, all while it threatens consequences to anyone who protests the national anthem. You can see the double standards start to appear. Going on to the national anthem issue, there's a former NFL player, Colin Kaepernick, who decided to kneel for that national anthem as a peaceful protest in front of thousands of viewers because it was during a professional game. He said, "I'm not going to stand up to show pride in the flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. To me, this is bigger than football, and it would be selfish on my part to look the other way. There are bodies in the street and people getting paid leave and getting away with murder." After this reasonable and understandable statement, there was immediate national outrage, and he actually lost his job and lost his fans and everything pretty much. And even then President Donald Trump called him a son of a B-word. So it's very upsetting to see someone who's just trying to peacefully protest a important cause be shown all this like anger. And on a more positive note, there's a former NBA player who talks about the things he saw his black teammates go through while he was playing. He discusses that throughout his career, he was merely a witness to his teammates' racist and unfortunate encounters, and it shook him enough as a person to acknowledge his white privilege. He concludes that the inequality built so deeply into so many of our most trusted institutions is wrong, and I believe it is the responsibility of anyone on the privileged end of those inequalities to help make things right. Another important topic is racial inequality and white privilege in the dance community. Alicia Mulliken says, as a first-generation Mexican-American woman of color in the dance world, I've experienced microaggressions that have caused significant barriers to progress as a dance artist, and damage my emotional health as a person of color. So you can again see that not only do these black athletes or people of color in the athletic world, they have to deal with both barriers and as a whatever they do, whatever sport they do, and the racism they deal with it just because of their skin color. She states these microaggressions later on. A smaller version would be just like assuming a person of color walking to a dance studio is there for like hip hop instead of ballet or some other dance form. Or on a bigger scale, when they only promote these studios in white communities so that black communities do not have the opportunity to even know what's out there, which is really upsetting. There's a clear double standard, as we've seen, for black athletes, and in the called for stimulus meaning of Serena, it says an important quote. It says, "The notable difference between black excellence and white excellence is white excellence is achieved without having to battle racism. Imagine." This brings up the fact that black athletes not only have to carry the burden of the taxing and difficult sports world, but also the burden of racism. I think that makes someone like Serena, who has over 20 Grand Slam titles, even more impressive. impressive. On a more positive note, anyone could tell that there's been many improvements regarding how far we've come from in the past decades regarding the quality of races in every sport. A great example is the Arthur Ashe Stadium, which is named after a black male tennis player who's a legend in the game of tennis. Any questions?
Okay, yeah, I do have two questions. What evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and then why did you choose not to use it?
I gathered a lot of evidence on racism and coaching and how children grow up with those coaches and obviously end up being like racist sometimes. I gathered it on coaches, and I didn't use that because I just felt like there was other instances that I wanted to include in this presentation.
All right, and if you had more time, what additional research would you conduct on this issue?
I think I would go more into specific situations like Colin Kaepernick, because I think those real life instances are what teaches people the most.